All right, so welcome to another episode of Biohacking Beauty. My guest today is Jennilyn Griffiths. Jennilyn, first of all, thank you for gracing us with your presence. I'm
You are very welcome.
very happy that you joined us.
Yes.
So you obviously are an expert in nutrition and in gut health. And our evil plan here at Biohacking Beauty podcast is to have people improve their health, optimize their health through the lens of having better skin, kind of to entice people to have better health because we're telling them that it's going to improve their skin.
Right.
And you as a gut expert, as a nutrition expert, how would you convince someone to take care of their gut health and their nutrition by, convincing them that it's going to improve their skin?
Yes. I love this question because a lot of people don't know that there's a high correlation between gut health and skin health.
Mm-hmm.
I figured this out. So there's definitely a thing called, especially when you talk about the microbiome, which I'll talk about a lot during this episode. The microbiome, when I say that, a lot of people think just, your gut bacteria. That's like the first response I ever get. If people know what it is, they're like, your gut bacteria. And I'm like, no, this is your bacteria everywhere. So anywhere that you have a orifice or interaction with the outside world, you're going to have a microbiome because it's part of your immune response, right? So your skin is a barrier. It's a huge barrier that protects you from the outside world as far as bacteria, viruses that are more pathogenic that would maybe meant to hurt us, So even if you think about it, think about you get a cut and then it heals magically. How does that heal? Well, the microbiome and the immune system start working together to heal the adhesion, right? So that you don't get an infection, and they have all this things in place. And a lot of people don't understand, like I said, when you think about the microbiome, it's not just gut. Yeah, there's a huge density of it in your large intestine, but you actually have a huge of it in your skin. There's a huge microbiome, literally environment all in your skin, your mouth, your ears, your nose, all of this. So if you have dysfunctional microbiome, you usually will have dysfunctional skin. That's what I learned. So I personally had a lot of gut issues when I was a teenager, and along with it came acne, right? Because when you have gut issues, acne is way more likely to happen. And everyone's like, oh, it's hormonal. And then try, whatever. They try to send me the dermatologist, and they usually recommend Accutane, which I'm like, I definitely advise against. I luckily didn't get on it, but I had to go on this journey of understanding, oh, wait, so if I have dysfunction in my gut and my microbiome, it's definitely going to come across through my skin. And you see this a lot with autoimmune diseases. I see more popping up of psoriasis, eczema, these skin issues that are autoimmune because you have a dysfunctional microbiome. There's a high stress response. There's high inflammation. Usually there's leaky gut. So it's that's going to be, if you think about it on the inside, if I have a lot going on inflammation wise, it's going to push through my skin. You have pores, you know what I mean? So it's until you address really the dysfunctional microbiome, it's really hard to have good skin. It's a pretty clear connection. Yeah.
I agree. First of all, yes, I love the connection that you made between our microbiome in the gut and the microbiome that we have in our skin, in our mouth, wherever that may be. First of all, if we talk about acne, which obviously most of our listeners are not experiencing acne, but some of them do. And if you talk about acne or any type of effect of a bad bacteria in our body, that bacteria needs to have a place to grow, right? So I can tell you my personal experience, which I don't think I've shared before. I've had an infection in my leg, in my early 20s, and I had to go basically 2 months on antibiotics. And I've never had acne before, never had any gut issues. And that completely obviously destroyed my gut. I started to have breakouts, among other things, inflammation that I've never had before. And that is one of the reasons that I got into this health journey that led us here today. But why does this happen? Because when you're killing off all the bacteria that you have with antibiotics, what is going to grow later on, what is going to fill that void is obviously random, right? Or it is less controlled. And the same thing goes with acne. If we just look at the skin microbiome, right? Or the bacteria on our skin, when we use the word microbiome, that means the bacteria, the life that is going on our skin, this multitude of organisms that just live on our skin and live in synergy with us. And when P. acne bacteria, which is a specific bacteria, is present, it means that it had a place to grow. If we cultivated the perfect microbiome in our skin, it means it wouldn't be there to begin with, or there will be very low amounts of it. And that would mean that we wouldn't have acne. It's just a specific bacteria that is allowed to grow there.
Yes.
And of course, there is a direct correlation between what we have. The way I heard someone explain it, and I really liked it, is basically that we are a sleeve, right? There is a hole, one in our mouth, one obviously down there, our anus, and everything that goes between those is going into the tube. It's not actually in it. So we're like a donut, more or less. And
I like this.
And basically, the gut is like this doorman in a nightclub, basically, like trying to figure out who should go in, who shouldn't go in, who are we allowing in, right? And if they're doing their job well, only the beneficial aspects of obviously the food that we're eating, etc., are going to go in, and whatever is not is going to get secreted. But things, most of the time, if we're not functioning optimally, things can go wrong, right? So what are you seeing pop very, very common in people, let's say, that live in the United States? What's very common?
Yeah. This question, it's like a loaded question because there's so many gut dysfunctions going on.
Mm-hmm.
The main ones I see right now are leaky gut is highly common. I mean, it's like, you got to think about, we can go into that, but the reasons are stress can cause leaky gut. I mean, I think we're all highly stressed, unless you learn techniques of how to manage stress, we're in a stressful environment. You know what I mean? Like if you don't pay attention to, you have news on and we had a pandemic and fear and mongering and all this stuff. It's like you put yourself in pretty much a sympathetic fight or flight place, which puts you more at risk for leaky gut, and then also alcohol consumption, I know went up a lot in 2020. Alcohol can cause leaky gut too. You know what I mean? So I think I'm seeing the perfect storm right now for leaky gut, which is, for those that you don't know, I'll explain it super fast. So in your intestines, your small intestine in particular, you got to remember this is like 23 to 26 feet in length. It's huge depending on your height, and you have all this tissue that is supposed to be tight junctions, like you said, that allows things in or allows things out, right? But when you have leaky gut, these junctions are loose and they're letting things out and in that shouldn't be there. So like you can actually eat a healthy food like almonds. And if you have leaky gut, it can actually go out into your bloodstream. And then your immune system wants to attack it like a foreign invader because it's like, yo, you're undigested food. You're not supposed to be in the bloodstream. So you can develop these food allergies to healthy foods, even not even talking about gluten yet, like to almonds or to bananas or whatever. You can develop these food allergies because you had leaky gut, you had a response from a food, and now your immune system develops antibodies towards that food and it remembers, oh, this food was problematic. I need to attack the food again. You know what I mean? Yeah. So a lot of people don't know you can actually heal a lot of food sensitivities by healing leaky gut. You can retest, you can do like a Cyrex Labs food sensitivity test, and you can retest after you've healed leaky gut. And like, I've had people that had like 20 items that came up and then had like 2 items come up. It's really incredible. So leaky gut, I'm seeing a lot. So like I said, when you have those loose junctions, food can go through. And then think about it this way, you're pretty much causing inflammation every time you eat. And that's the problem. So I have people with leaky gut, they have a lot of fatigue, like chronic fatigue, because every time they're eating, instead of getting energy from it, they're causing an immune response and they're causing inflammation. So like brain fog comes up really heavy as a symptom, chronic fatigue, sleep issues, depression and anxiety, like mental health issues. Because me and you have a gut brain axis, and everything that goes on my gut is going to affect my brain. They're directly connected all the time. It's like a bilateral system. So they're always communicating with each other. So just so you guys know, for every like one signal that your brain sends to your gut sends 9 signals up to your brain. So I know I heard the gut referred to as the second brain. I'm like, I almost like would argue it's the first brain sometimes, because it's sending a lot of signals to the brain to let it know, hey, this is my environment. So if you have a highly inflammatory environment like leaky gut, you're going to have brain fog. I mean, it just totally makes sense. It's like, you're not going to have the best mental health because your body's pretty inflamed, Plus glyphosate, if people aren't familiar with glyphosate, it's a Roundup, it's a pesticide killer. It's sprayed on so many crops, heavily on wheat, corn, and soy. So that's a lot of reason I avoid wheat, corn, and soy, and other reasons too. But you want to avoid glyphosate because glyphosate in research has literally been directly shown to increase gut permeability, which is, like I said, those loose junctions. So, I mean, you got to just do some measures to protect yourself against these things that are happening right now, So leaky gut's really, really prominent. Like I said, you can have leaky gut with other gut issues too. And that's what I'm seeing a little bit more. I'd say probably leaky gut's like the most common thing I'm seeing, because you will see, like I said, autoimmune's been popping up too. That's kind of leaky gut. Skin issues, they're pretty highly correlated, but leaky gut. And then oftentimes what will kind of come with leaky gut is dysbiosis in general. So dysbiosis is just like an imbalance of good and bad bacteria. So it could be, the main 2 that I'm seeing right now are candida, which is a yeast overgrowth. We all have levels of candida. That's one thing you got to realize, but there's a difference between someone with normal levels and an overgrowth. And when you create an environment that's like inflammatory, leaky gut, high blood sugar, you pretty much create an environment for candida to overgrow. So I thought it was interesting. I heard an expert talking about candida the other day, and he said it's estimated that 1/3 of America right now has a candida overgrowth. 1/3. Wow. And you know what I find interesting is, also is 1/3 of this country right now is pre-diabetic. So you definitely see a connection with blood sugar regulation issues and candida come in, because you got to realize candida, they eat glucose. That's like their fuel. Yeah. So you fuel them every time you're eating carbs, sugar, especially simple sugars they love. And then what's scary about candida is they actually, so just so you guys know, the microbiome is an endocrine making system, meaning they can make hormones. This is just being like discovered in research right now, which I think is highly fascinating. Yeah. So candida can actually make hormones to make you want more sugar. Like they can create a sugar addiction. And then I have clients that are like, dude, I have no willpower at night. I just want to eat all the sugar and the candy and my kids' candy. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And to me, I'm like, that screams candida. It's like, if you don't feel like you have willpower and your sugar addiction is so strong that you'll just like dive into anything, like that's like your brain's been hijacked,
Well, in general, I feel like cravings or a relationship with food is really the relationship of the microbiome that we have in our gut and food. Yes. It's almost like we are only employing judgment, whether it's good or lack of judgment, but we're only there to employ judgment. Like all the signals, what we want to eat, what we're craving for, etc. That is all really the bacteria that we've cultivated until that point. Basically, cueing the brain, cueing our body what it is lacking. But if we cultivated the wrong bacteria, it's going to cue that it needs different things than what we really need. And that is obviously a first step in unraveling that puzzle, whatever we want to call it, because really, in my opinion, no one has the perfect gut. If someone has the perfect gut, it is really fragile. Let's say it like that, because we're talking about relationship between good bacteria, bad bacteria, different pathogens that might have come in, with food that we're eating. It is really like a very well orchestrated dance, right? Yes. So we should probably be treating ourselves, in air quote, like we have increased gut permeability, leaky gut all the time anyway, to a certain extent, right? And that would probably be the smartest way to cultivate our gut health, which in my opinion is really where everything starts from, because as you said, it is the place that we also derive all the nutrients that we need. So everything that we need to function really starts at the gut. We've had a very interesting live with the founder of Microbiome Labs. And we were talking about how, gut permeability really is the base for many of what ails our society, right? Whether it is like aggression, people feeling down, people feeling depressed, all of those things really started at our gut. Like, I think in the United States and in the Western world in general, we would be solving a lot of the issues that we have if we started in the gut. And there is a reason that there is something called gut feeling. There is a reason that we refer to it as something that gives us input, because it really does. And science kind of catches on to this now, but it's something that we've known intuitively for forever. And unfortunately, as we progress and as we try and biohack the world, because really what Western society is if we dial it back and back and back, we're looking at nature and we're trying to biohack it, strip all the things that are, bad for us and leave only the good. But along the way, we're actually making a lot of mistakes, right? Yes. And these mistakes, almost everything that is coming in packaged form is a type of the world trying to refine a certain aspect of nutrition, whether it's just the taste or whether it is something that's actually good for you. Most of the time it is going to be lacking, and we probably should be avoiding it. Do you agree with me that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think you just hit a big thing on the head, that the problem is our food has been stripped of fiber, really, which feeds our bacteria. So if you look at most processed foods, they have no fiber in them. Even traditional bread used to actually have high fiber, and now they take out the fiber so they can pretty much just leave the wheat germ and the glucose. So it's you just get a big glucose spike without any of the benefits of fiber that actually feed your bacteria and slow down blood sugar. So I'm seeing that a lot right now.
Yeah. And I think, we're getting slightly away from microbiome specifically, and where we have been talking about, we have mentioned glucose a few times. And I think in general, glucose is one of the things, or if we want to kind of give ourselves a grade of how well we're managing aging or managing longevity, whatever we want to look at it as, we should really be looking at our relationship with glucose and glucose spikes and insulin secretion. Because I give this example sometimes, and I'm trying to make a better, like trying to refine the example that I'm giving, but really our body has evolved to be in two states, in an abundant state or in a lack state. And so think of a lion, okay? Think of like an apex lion that has taken control of the territory that he's now, the main person or the main animal there. This is a lion that is obviously in abundant state, right? He can get a lot of food whenever he needs, etc. His only role genetically at that point is to spread his seed as much as possible. So it's going to expend actually all of its resources, all of them. He is not interested in living for 10 more years. What he's interested in is taking that opportunity, because he doesn't know how long it's going to last, and just spread his seed as much as possible. What happens is his body, metaphorically, is basically running the engine on red. All right. If we take another lion that's maybe biding his time, he's not the main lion there. His body, because he is getting cues of lack. He's not getting enough nutrients, or he doesn't get enough calories per se. His body is like in survival mode, and like, I'm going to preserve myself the best way that I can so I can enjoy that opportunity later on. So I'm going to basically like activate all of those longevity pathways so I can keep myself in a suboptimal state, but close to optimal state for longer. And the main cue or the main relationship with, obviously, so before I get to that, obviously what we want to do is to kind of, because we do want to live until 90, 100 years old, but look and feel like we're 50. We do want to kind of engage those survival mechanisms, those longevity mechanisms. So we need to cue our body that we're not in abundance all the time. And the main thing that signals abundance is, obviously the glucose. Like, glucose makes your body want to grow, perform to its optimal level, but unfortunately, it is also cueing or suppressing longevity mechanisms.
Yes.
And do you like the idea of continuous glucose monitoring? That a lot of people, if someone walks in the street and he sees people with like a patch on the back of their hand, it can be because they're diabetic, but it also can be like a longevity strategy that a lot of people are looking into now, as far as measuring how well they're doing. Are you supporting that?
Yes, I actually really support all glucose monitoring right now. Yeah. I think the CGM, so it's continuous glucose monitor. Yeah. It's really cool because it's in live time. So I've had some clients get it at least for like a month or two. Mm-hmm. NutriSense actually sent me one a few months ago, and I even wore it. I have good blood sugar, but I just wanted to see. What I found very interesting is I know that obviously sugar is going to raise my blood glucose, right? I know if I eat carbs, it's going to raise my blood glucose. I wasn't necessarily surprised, but it was cool to see in data is that, like, if I didn't have good sleep the night before, mm-hmm. my baseline was higher the next day. So my baseline, like most days when I would check it, it'd be like 85, mm-hmm. Which is, pretty good baseline. And I'd wake up at 85. And there was a couple days where I just got not as good at sleep. I went to sleep late, didn't manage my bedtime routine like I normally do. And I woke up and it was like, I think 97 or something. So I saw mm-hmm. like literally a 10 point, 12 point increase just from not getting sleep. And then also seeing how stress affects your blood sugar. So you have to think about it really makes sense evolutionary wise. If I'm in a stress state, if I'm in a fight or flight sympathetic, place, mm-hmm. my body's like, oh, you need resources to run away from this mm-hmm. tiger. So of course it's going to increase your blood glucose so you can have energy to like fight or flight, right? Mm-hmm. So it makes perfect sense, but I don't think people realize on a daily basis, sometimes the roller coaster they're sending their blood glucose on because of activating that sympathetic nervous system quite a bit. I personally see a huge correlation between the stress response that's not very good, well managed right now with us, and blood sugar irregulation, faster aging. I mean, what the stress response does if you're continually in that state quite often. Yeah. So I found that interesting with blood sugar to see how stress and sleep affected it. Because I tell people, even if you're on a ketogenic diet, it doesn't always mean you have super low blood sugar. You might have other things playing into it that you're not, and we understand that insulin is like, it's a huge signaling molecule for aging and anti-aging. I mean, if you can control insulin, everything just changes. And we're seeing a lot of these metabolic diseases coming out stronger, like Alzheimer's, diabetes, cancer, you know, like all these metabolic diseases. And I definitely feel like they're tied to mismanagement of blood sugar.
Yeah.
It's not the only factor, but it's a big factor.
Well, you know, what I think is important to understand about blood sugar levels and monitoring them is a really good way to get a score to your general approach to longevity, or not even consciously, but as you said, things that are going to age us are most of the time also going to affect our blood sugar levels.
Yes.
So again, like sleep, stress, even things like when are we working out, we can get like a clue, when is it better for us to work out, wake sleep times, I mean like mouth taping, and you can think hyperbaric chamber, sauna, cold exposure, anything that lowers inflammation. All of those things are going to be expressed in your body's ability to prevent spikes of blood sugar levels. And another way to explain it is like hypothetical and feasible survival. What I mean by that is, let's say we're taking something that like metformin or like resveratrol or like turmeric, or we're doing intermittent fasting, okay? All of those things are cueing the body that it needs to basically preserve itself because there is a possibility that later on it's going to need resources. So right now what it's going to do, it's going to basically like make itself, you know, survive at the best state until that is going on. Then there is feasible survival. I didn't get enough sleep. As you said, you know, the lion's going to, or the tiger's going to be chasing me. I'm stressed. Whatever is an overwhelming amount of cues to the brain, to the body, that it needs to recruit a lot of resources in order to fight something feasible, that's going to be when we're going to be sacrificing those longevity pathways, molecules, reservoirs, whatever. So even we can even talk about like the relationship between poor gut permeability and white hair, like things that are going to be quite a journey to explain. But if you think about it, you have increased gut permeability, you're getting undigested or partially digested like food into your bloodstream, or you're getting higher levels of acidity in your bloodstream, and you're getting your immune response activated, and you're getting basically higher inflammation, and you're getting more blood sugar there, and you are creating more stress in your body. That stress is obviously affecting cortisol levels, which are now heightened. And that hormone cortisol, which is interesting about it, it literally is what depletes you of stem cells. So it's going to deplete stem cells in the hair follicle, which is going to make the hair follicle obviously use more of its pigment or lose more of its pigment, and then the hair is going to be white. So we can go like on a journey like that. I just chose something random. We can go into any type of longevity that you're interested in, and most people are going to be interested in white hair apparently.
Yes.
Any type of longevity, and we can tie it back to the gut and those suboptimal mechanisms there. But you did mention, you know, Alzheimer's and diabetes right now, and that's something I saw you posting about, and obviously that's a hot topic, calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. Who made that connection? How is that connection being made?
Yeah, no, this is a good question. I'm super interested in this topic right now because I was always under the impression that Alzheimer's was strictly a genetic thing, right? So it's like, oh, Alzheimer's runs in my family. My dad had it. That means I have it, you know, I might have it. And I really didn't understand what the disease was. So the reason it's being referred to as type 3 diabetes now is it's actually insulin resistance of the brain. So we all know, if you know diabetes, a lot of people don't even know this basic information, but type 2 diabetes is severe insulin resistance. So my cell, just a little quick thing is, you guys need insulin to get glucose into your cell. It's like the bouncer that's like, hey, I got to be here for you to get in, right? That's what I tell people. So it's like, if I am bombarding my cell with insulin all the time because I'm having blood sugar all the time, like I'm eating a lot of carbohydrates and sugar, then I'm going to have high insulin. It's bombarding the cell. The cell becomes insulin resistant. So just like I give this analogy, like, you know, when you're at a loud concert and you're by a big speaker and it's like bombarding your ear, and then afterwards you're like, wait, what? Sorry, I can't hear you. Like my hearing sensitivity has gone down, you know, or has, you know, so that's like the same thing with your cell. It's been bombarded by this noise, which is, you know, high insulin. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm not responding to this anymore because it needs more and more to get the same job done. So that's how diabetes 2 happens. And then when you have diabetes 2 for too long and you haven't reversed it, which you can, if you guys are listening, you have type 2 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, you can reverse it. There's been plenty of research to show that. I've done it with clients too. What happens is if your brain becomes insulin resistant, so now it can't use glucose for energy very well. And if you think about, if I can't use glucose and I haven't taught my body how to produce ketones, I don't have any energy source for my brain. Yeah. And you guys know that your brain only weighs 2% of your body weight, but it uses 25% of your calories. It uses a lot of calories to just put all these things together and learn and communicate. And we have so much things that our brain does. So if you think about it, if all of a sudden my brain doesn't have a source of fuel, of course my memory is going to go away. Of course, my cognitive abilities will go away. The interesting thing is in a lot of the research they've done. So if you guys want to check out this research, I have helped with a conference called Metabolic Health Summit, which is Dominic D'Agostino's conference. I work with Victoria and Angela Popp and Victoria Field, and they are so passionate about this project. And so am I, because they'll show this research where people have Alzheimer's and they'll give them ketones, like exogenous ketones. And all of a sudden these people can think, they can remember things, they can put together things, they recognize faces again. It's like so incredible. They've even reversed stages of Alzheimer's, like they have reversed, like it's stages, just like cancer. So I'm really big on this because it really is type 3 diabetes. It's insulin resistance of the brain. There is some genetic factors that can make you more prone to Alzheimer's, but I would definitely say that your lifestyle is definitely what pulls the trigger. It definitely, like if I remain insulin sensitive, my chances of developing Alzheimer's are very low, very low.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also think that when we look at like genetic predisposition, it's true. People are more predisposed to this or the other. But what we are not considering is that a lot of the things like habits we're also inheriting from whoever we grew up with, right? So obviously there's a correlation. If someone had Alzheimer's and their parents had Alzheimer's or diabetes or anything else, really, obviously the same habits might permeate also in their offsprings, and those habits are going to lead for the offsprings obviously to be susceptible to whatever was there in their ancestors' medical history. So yeah, there are people who are more sensitive to gluten or whatever. Okay, there are more people who are more lactose intolerant. But obviously, if you are lactose intolerant and gluten intolerant, but your ancestors or your parents just lived off of like bread and pasteurized, there is a very high correlation between that and the health risks that both of you have.
Yes. And really quick on that, I love that you said, so I've been into that a lot lately too, as far as habits being passed down genetically, more so than actual genetics.
Yeah.
So if you think about this, we are meant to model behavior as a child, right? So between the ages, especially of 0-7, we model a lot of behavior from our parents and siblings, right, that are in the household. So I'm really convinced about this stuff, by the way, like if you watch your parents and how they ate and they start their morning with cereal and orange juice and glucose this and glucose that and all this blood sugar stuff, that we know is going to raise your blood sugar, you develop those habits. Those are subconscious at this point, where you have, like, people that are disposed more to diabetes, right? What I've noticed is there's correlations in their family of low activity. So like not moving, not exercising, over consuming carbohydrates, usually consuming like simple sugars, like sodas and like drinks that have a lot of sugar in them. Those are habits that have been passed down from your parents. That's not a genetic thing. That's I see it and I do it. Monkey see, monkey do type thing. So unless you actually become very conscious of your patterns and behavior and what did my parents do? What did their parents do? We're just mimicking generations of behavior. So that, I think, is more of a factor than actual genetics.
Yeah, I agree. And unfortunately, even if we pan out a little bit, I think it's more unfortunate because I think Jonathan Haidt is the person I've read what I'm going to quote right now, but I might be wrong. The way that we develop a strong certainty about a specific fact as children is if we see people who might disagree about specific things, but agree about like one subject. So that can be obviously the reason that we adopt our parents' religion or the habits or whatever it is. So what I'm saying, unfortunate, is if we see a bad habit like feeding kids sugary foods or subnutritious foods or whatever that is, we can see it also in the households, but we can also go out to the world and have more people who have more disagreements with each other and have that as a common ground. And that is even being more hammered into us. So it is also true that our close tight-knit group family has those habits that are being passed on, but also if you live in a community that has those habits of drinking sugary sodas or eating packaged foods a lot, you're literally, it's like Pavlovian response,
Yes.
right? People grow up, they hear like a bag being opened, then they are already salivating. They're already looking to see what is it that they're going to shove their hand into and, shove it into their mouth afterwards. So,
Yes.
I mean, it is literally it's probably a religion, like, to be honest with you. I think eating unhealthy is an indoctrination in a religion. And we really need to be conscious about re-educating ourselves and having that conscious part of our brain really, hone in on that and connecting to what you said before about not having good sleep, about having other issues that you're dealing with and that your mental stamina needs to be dealing with, and also making those right decisions. That's where I see a lot of people falling. Obviously, people were resuming smoking during stressful situations, or obviously like making poor health choices when there is another thing that they need to deal with, like lack of sleep. Research shows to it, but I think the mental component there is huge, right? I need to deal with something. I need to devote all my good decision, making stamina to something else. I'm going to have issues with decision making about healthy choices. I mean,
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you brought up habits, because I actually want to talk about some habits that hurt your microbiome, because I see a lot of this. I think a lot of people, like I said, they're uninformed of what the microbiome is, and there's simple habits that I teach my clients that I think could help a lot of people listening. So one thing you got to realize is your microbiome is affected. Like I said, I love this is a skin episode, because I always talk to people like what you're putting on your skin is absorbing, right? So I see people like, oh my gosh, it like terrifies me. The amount of beauty products that are toxic that people are using right now is like, wow, like extremely high. Yeah. So like, I mean, we can go all into it, but the main thing I start teaching people to look for is like, if I wouldn't eat it, I probably shouldn't put it on my skin, right? Because I'm absorbing it. Like, where does the lotion go? It's gone. It's in your pores. And people are always like, it's lotion. It's on the outside. I don't care if there's this crazy ingredient in it. I'm like, where do you think it's going? Like,
well, yeah. I mean, I'll give you our point of view, because we obviously, most of what we do is formulate and reformulate and invest, we reinvest 90% of our free income in research and development. And I'll give you two things that are my opinion about that. First of all, if anyone says, oh, it's only on the outside of my body, I don't care if it has crazy ingredients, then they have a really interesting relationship with what they're putting on it, because they are admitting that it's only for their psychological benefits. And why am I saying that? Is because if it's not working, then it's not working, right? But if it's working, then it's working. It means that it's going to affect our systems somehow. That's the first thing. So we're in agreement of that. But I'm going to tell you another thing. Why I do not like the phrase, if I wouldn't need it, I'm not going to put it on my skin. Just as a way to say things, is because a normal skincare product has been sitting on a shelf anywhere between 6 months to 2 years before you put it on your skin. And if we go back to like packaged foods and things like that, we can figure out that I would not eat anything that has lasted in a package for 6 to 24 months. So the way we approach skincare should be a little different, because if we were looking to do that, I mean, I wouldn't expect to get benefits from a juice that I can buy in like Whole Foods or something, but has been on the shelf for a few hours, right? So the approach to skincare specifically should be a little different. And that's kind of why we've coined the term like biohacking skincare, right? So there are like two schools of thought. One is what you're saying right now. Okay, I'm going to put only things that are clear to me. I can read the label and say, oh, I know what that is. I can pronounce this, right? And that school of thought is very good. It's just not corresponding with the reality. And the reality is that the product is not like made right there and you're putting it on your skin. And even if it would have, we need to have that active ingredient we want to supply to your skin, like stable through your skin barrier, etc. That's number one. But also you're not you need to create a symphony, like a relationship between stability of molecules, good delivery method, and active ingredients. On the other side of it are obviously like toxic, whether it's like medical grade or like normal pharmacy kind of skincare, but all of them, what they're trying to do is say, I need to make huge amounts of this. I need to have it survive, a truck driving in the heat and, getting there, at least smelling okay. You know what I'm saying? Like that's honestly advising to a lot of skincare companies, huge ones, as well as small ones. What they're afraid of the most is that the product's not going to smell well, which is another completely different discussion about like fragrance is really bad.
That's their main concern. Not does it
Yes.
actually improve your skin?
No. Oh no. It's not a discussion. Absolutely not. So it's like number one, fragrance. Number two, how does the customer feels when they put it on their skin? And not only physically, but also mentally. Did we project the right image of whatever, did we brainwash them the right way, right? So that's number two. And number three is that they're not getting sued. That's like the three main ones. Okay. Yeah. So you're not going to see there something that is really going to create a change in the skin. Medical grade is a little different. It's basically, okay, I need to create results, but I need to create results now. So I don't care about your endocrine system. I don't care about, how it's going to affect you in 10 years. I don't care how it affects your brain, your fertility, your hormones, whatever that is. But having ingredients, even if they're very natural, travel in a truck in the heat or whatever for, across America, and having no advanced chemistry there to stabilize them well is a hazard in and on its own. So what we're trying to do, like biohacking skincare, is to say, okay, we understand the end results we're trying to get. We understand what we want to try and avoid, right? As far as like endocrine disruption, etc. And we're going to make the best relationship between the two, because it's not a win-win. It's not like if I'm putting coconut oil on my skin, if it's become rancid, it's not good for you. Okay. Yeah. And we're not even talking about mold and stuff like that. But I do want to talk, that was just I went on a little tirade there.
Tangent. But, no, it was a good tangent, because thank you really quick for correcting. You're right. I have said that in the past, and it's more to get people away from just using crazy ingredients where they, like you said, they can't pronounce 50 ingredients that are on there. I'm like, would you eat that? But you are right. They're totally different mechanisms as far as eating and putting on skin. I'm just trying to get people awareness that it's like, hey, the shaving cream you're using and the cologne and the face wash and the toner and the, all of this. Yeah, they're all having 40 and toxic ingredients. So you're putting like 100 ingredients on your skin per day that are like, ooh,
Yeah. And I think it's the most important thing that you need to understand is basically you really want to look and feel better tomorrow than you are today. Right? If you are only thinking about, and we can talk about people putting the wrong type of lotion on their face. We can talk about people doing too much to themselves as far as like plastic surgery, or even working out too hard, or telling themselves, I don't feel good right now emotionally. I'm going to eat this burger because it's going to make me feel better. All of those decisions we're making right now to feel like the best right now without thinking of the future, that is part of what leads humans like into a bad path, right? There should always be like a balance between satisfying the ego, satisfying the emotional state right now. We don't want it to get too bad, that has issues on its own, but understanding that we're going to have the same consciousness, whatever, tomorrow, next year, and we need to take care of that person too.
Yes. Not that you just nailed it on the head. This instant gratification is what we're kind of, and it makes sense if we're living in a high stress place, because in a high stress place, you're worried about survival in the moment. You're not worried about thriving 2 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road,
Yeah. And we're getting, again, like we're the more deep this conversation becomes, it's really apparent that we're only talking about like those two brains, right? Getting those two brains aligned as well. Okay. Having the vagus nerve, which connects them as far as like the communication in a good state, etc. That's a whole different conversation, but really getting those into a very correct state. Do you do
a coherent state? Like they're, yes. Do I do anything? What?
Do you do anything to take care of your emotional journey? Is that something that you're saying, okay, I understand the relationship between the two brains. I take care of my gut brain as much as I can, and I feed it the right things. That's one type of nutrition. But do you have any take on like emotional nutrition or conscious nutrition?
Yes. I love this question. You're like so full of good questions, but To be honest, the emotional centers and the gut are highly connected as well.
Yeah.
And you realize this with the vagal nerve, right? So I always, when people are healing their gut or their brain, there has to be emotional aspects there. My favorite, I'll just go into like top 5, maybe, because there's so many.
Yeah.
Breath work. Breath work is so huge because it can literally teach your body how to go from a sympathetic fight or flight place to a parasympathetic rest and digest place. If I'm always eating in a sympathetic fight or flight place, I'm not even digesting my food, right? So that will even happen. So what I teach people, my favorite, there's a lot of breathing techniques, but I really like box breathing. It's called box breathing. So you just inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. So it's like a 16 count breath. They've actually discovered this with Navy SEALs because they showed in research, they have to calm their nervous systems before they go into a mission so that they can react appropriately. And they were showing that within 6 breaths of doing box breathing, they were able to switch their nervous system to parasympathetic.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dude, if this works for Navy SEALs, it can work for you before a meeting, or like people even wake up stressed. So I teach people my people with higher anxiety, I teach them to do box breathing first thing in the morning, start in a parasympathetic state. I also really I wear the Aura ring and they actually have breath work on there. Yeah. Biohackers unite. I really like the Aura ring. The reason I like it, the technology is cool, but it's the awareness it builds around your habits that I really like. So for me, it's like the first thing I do every morning now is check my sleep. Did I get good REM sleep? Did I get good deep sleep? Was my sleep latency good? How was my heart rate? It measures everything. But I tell people, if you didn't get a good night's sleep, literally you can go to the Explore tab and start with a breath work, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. They have tons of different ones. So I'd say breath work is number 1. Also, just when you realize yourself get triggered, let's say you get in a fight with someone or you're fighting with a spouse or something, do breath work because you can get out of that triggered space, before you respond. It really allows time between the stimulus and the response to respond better, not react, So I'd say number 1 is breath work. Number 2, I would say gratitude. Honestly, I do a gratitude practice every single day. I have a gratitude journal. It has made a tremendous impact on my mental state because it's funny because when I say gratitude, the people that are in a bad spot, they're like, it's kind of like, okay, I hear gratitude, but I'm not grateful for anything. I'm like, dude, it's a practice. So when you start, maybe you can't even think of anything, but you're like, really search. I was grateful that someone let me in on the freeway. It could be that simple. It could be, I was really grateful the sunset was so beautiful tonight. I was really grateful that it could just be something so small. I was grateful that I got fresh strawberries at the farmer's market. It starts priming your brain to look for the positive without you even trying. So the more you do a gratitude practice, you're literally rewiring neural pathways that are going from a negative place to a positive place. And it's almost like you don't even try. I just promise you adopt a gratitude practice for a month. You'll see what I mean. It's like the proof's in the pudding.
Frankly, I'm one of those people who had a really hard time with gratitude, really hard time to get the understanding of what it really means and how many times can I say that I'm grateful for my parents or my significant other or my family. It became kind of monotonous very fast and I lost interest until someone told me, play a game with yourself, play a trick with yourself. Try and think that whatever you're not grateful for, whatever you're not saying that you're grateful for or acknowledging, you're going to wake up tomorrow without that thing. And you're trying, and believe me, you can go a whole day just going through things that you are, grateful for, just taking them off the list. Okay, I said that. I'm going to wake up with that tomorrow. Your toenails, the glasses you really like. I don't know, anything really. You would find a way to be grateful for it because you understand that it's not a given that you're going to have that tomorrow or anything like that. So I agree with you. Yeah.
Yes. And I love that you admitted it was hard to start because I think that is the truth for people, guys. When I say that, like I said, I do get sometimes this response of because they were like, you're just trying to be positive. I'm like, no, I'm not trying just to be positive and act like there's not bad things in the world. I'm just trying to get my brain to train to focus on those things more because what we train, that our subconscious does rule our reality, to be honest. And so breath work and gratitude. And then the third thing I would say is just so I love the relationship between the gut barrier and life, because I do think it makes a lot of sense. There's an interesting, so Zach Bush, right? Zach Bush, Intelligence of Nature. So I'm an affiliate for them. I love their product. It helps increase, microbiome communication. But one thing I thought was interesting is when he did studies with ion and leaky gut, what they found was when people healed the gut lining, the gut barrier, they felt like they had better boundaries in life.
Interesting.
Right. So people, they would ask them, what mental benefits do you see? Any difference? And people were like, I just feel like I could like stand up to my boss at work that's usually really degrading, or I finally stood up to my mom and had boundaries with her. Or so it's interesting. I would say boundaries are my third as far as emotional, because you forget that you can control who has access to you and how they treat you. And I just see this really common. It's weird because it's related with leaky gut. I promise. People that have really bad leaky gut, I'm not saying it always correlates. I'm just saying I'm seeing a high correlation, is that they could have weak boundaries, which make them emotionally up and down, right? Because they're letting people influence them. So I'd say like set limits, like turn off notifications, like set limits with people who have access to you. I've done this, especially the last year. And I can say I like literally my mental state has changed a lot, because you're with, let's say you entertain that toxic relationship or the toxic boss, or you let people treat you like that, you're allowing that energetic space into your space all the time. And then you're confused why your emotions don't feel good. Yeah. And to me, I'm like, as soon as I set barriers with people, like, hey, I would love to support you, but that's not my problem. Or like, I don't have space for that. Or like, I need to prioritize my positivity, my mental health. I just think it's a big game changer. I think people are afraid to do it, but I would just say, don't be afraid to do it. If you know someone is triggering you a lot, really negative, always bringing you down, draining you, you got to get real with yourself and say like, I got to have boundaries because my mental health is really important. Yeah, not everyone else's, you know?
I agree. And I think it's obviously a habit, right? Yes. And we're getting back to like building good habits, bad habits, making the right decisions. Obviously, even so, I agree with you that obviously improving our gut does improve our mental state, therefore the self-worth that we have, therefore the mental boundaries that we feel that we're allowed to put and to kind of prioritize our health, ourselves, etc. But even if you look at it from a standpoint of like that decision fatigue I was talking about before, so you can imagine that we have the certain amount of decisions we can make a day, like good or bad.
Yes.
And we're basically like, if we are bombarded with too many kind of decisions that are non-habitual that we need to make, we're going to fatigue that muscle of, trying to make good decisions, or the muscles that, obviously just navigates towards a good decision, like prioritizing yourself. So if you do not have good gut health and that is not helping you out, you're not in a place where you're automatically like making good decisions, you are going to falter somewhere, and a lot of times it's within those boundaries. And yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me,
yes.
What you're saying.
Good. I'm glad. Like they're just all connected, emotional intelligence and learning. I'm also big on like journaling in general. Like if you have feelings, start journaling, get them out of your head. Because if you get them out on paper, sometimes I hear these people that are just like, you got to watch like all the input that you put in throughout the day. So that means your thoughts, that means what you're listening to, that means what you're scrolling, who are you following? So if you start to become more conscious, like we're saying, I'm big on the decision fatigue as well. And a lot of people are in bad habits in general. They're scrolling mindlessly. They're listening to things that are bringing them down, the news, fear. They're exposing themselves to all this kind of harmful stimuli. And they're not even, like you said, aware of it because their decision fatigue is gone. So they're all in habitual stuff. That's why I'm big on habits, creating good habits, because I mean, my morning routine, my night routine, I don't have to think about any of it. It's all habitual. It's all like no decisions have to make, but then I can make decisions where I need to. So on my client calls, when they're telling me about their problems, I can have better decision capacity because I actually have the capacity versus it's gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Huge. So that was number 3. What's
that was 4. Okay. I would say, no, I just said journaling. I think journaling is the last one I would do. Is just like journaling. How do I feel? And be be brutally honest with yourself. Like, I think some people hold back where they're like, no, I'm not really mad at that person. I'm like, dude, no one's going to read this. Like, put exactly what you want. Like, there's even, I heard of a concept, I haven't done it, but called a dark journal. And you can even write down like angry thoughts and you can like burn the paper, but they're like just practicing emotions, like getting them out instead of just letting them fester and like create havoc in your body, because emotions do create chemical responses that are not beneficiary to our systems,
Yeah. I mean, we all have, I think that the average is like 70% of our thoughts are negative, or like 80% of our thoughts are negative. And obviously, if you're in that loop, you're just going from thought to thought, it's quite difficult to pay attention to that. But if you're writing some thoughts on paper, you're putting things into perspective, right? You're like, okay, I've had this thought, and yesterday I was thinking that negative thing or contingency, and that now seems foolish. So maybe this is foolish as well. Like, I can see something I did a week ago, the way I responded, because I thought this was a big deal, and now I see it's not a big deal. So today I switched to biological dentist, and I had my like filling changed and stuff like that. And I was sitting in the chair, and obviously it wasn't pleasant. And I was thinking, everything is tolerable to some extent, right? It's how long it's going to last that drives us crazy as human beings, right? And I think to put things into perspective of time is really helpful. Whether this feeling, whatever you're feeling, good, bad, whatever, will time make it worse or better? You know, if time will make it better, be patient. Let time do its course. If it's something acute, right, time's going to make it worse. I don't know. I have an open wound. If I'm not going to take care of it, time is going to make it worse. I should probably take care of it. But most things, time is actually a very wise, whatever guide. And is going to actually, I don't know if solve, but definitely it's going to soften a lot of things that seem harsh right now. So I think it's a good perspective. And that perspective is kind of journaling all of your neurotic thoughts and trying to figure out what happens to them with time. I think it's part of meditation. It's kind of, written meditation.
Yes, it is. Like you said, meditation. I mean, that's another one I would throw in, but I know there's like so many. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Do you want to give it number 5, meditation?
No, really, honestly, meditation, because I just think the realization of recognizing what your thoughts actually are is powerful. Because like you said, our brains are prediction machines. So a lot of our thoughts are repetitive, and a lot of our thoughts are repetitive worries. So this could happen in the future. This could happen in the future. And I just repeat them. As soon as I actually become aware of my thoughts, I can question them. So like, let's say a thought comes, I question my thoughts all the time, guys. I don't even believe, I think if you believe everything, all of your thoughts, that's a problem. Because if you have a lot of negative thoughts that come in that say, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, you'll never be successful. Any of those thoughts that I entertain that I actually believe will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if I'm actually able to catch my thoughts and be like, that's an interesting thought. What brought that? I'm going to question that. It can literally start to change your reality. Like I've practiced this for the last few years pretty heavy. And I can tell you that I don't always trust my thoughts. If there's a day I got bad sleep, I don't really trust my thoughts as much the next day because I've realized they're not as positive. If I like last night, I had amazing sleep. I got like 8 hours, 30 minutes. Deep REM, deep sleep, and I woke up and I felt like super happy today. And I'm like, okay, this is a day where I'm probably going to trust my thoughts more because they're very like driven and success. And you know what I'm saying? So I would just say questioning your thoughts and your beliefs and being aware of them is pretty huge.
Yeah. I love that. I remember when I was in my kind of mid-20s, dealing with a lot of like the things that come with being in military service for a while, getting out of that and growing as a human being. There's a lot of like things that this interaction isn't very positive sometimes. And Doing the Work by Byron Katie. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I've done her. I've read like all her books. That's why we get along, dude. She teaches you to question your thoughts. Yes.
Yeah. So if anyone, I think it's a whole system, and it would be, we kind of described what it is, right? But I think if anyone wants to go into that rabbit hole of like looking at their thoughts, if you want to biohack your thoughts, read Byron Katie. Highly recommended. Loving What Is one of her books.
And I Need Your Love, Is It True? That one's good. Yeah. If you're a people pleaser, read that one. That's what I say.
So, Jennilyn, I feel like we can go forever, but
I know we really could.
What I do want to kind of point out is that it is very apparent from our conversation that you've done the work and that you have a wealth of knowledge that is translatable, which what I mean is this. One of the things that we had in the past, one of the companies that we had and was running until recently, was a company that took good ideas and made products out of them, like a consulting firm, especially in the biohacking field and in tech. And what is apparent is most of the time, the people who are the most knowledgeable have a hard time translating it to the people who need to go out to the field and either use that technology or sell that technology or train that technology, train others. And it is very unique to find someone that also has the wealth of knowledge, but also is able to pass it on, train, relate to different people, not to be in their own head, and have that, again, that dance between accumulating a lot of knowledge and being able to process that knowledge and package it so someone else can digest it. And that is why we have you on this podcast, right? The biohack, the Young Goose team that this podcast is by. We love you as a person, but what we love the most is the ability to translate it. So what I would like is for you to let people know how they can reach out, like how can they get trained by you, how they can basically tap into that knowledge and get specific guidance, which I feel is imperative to anyone who doesn't want to spend, like their next decade sourcing the knowledge that you already have.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you so much. Because I love you guys too. I met you in Austin and immediately I was like, okay, Soul Fam, these are my people, because we're just passionate. We're passionate people, So the best ways to get in touch with me is I'm active on TikTok and Instagram. It's at Jennilyn Fit, JENNIOYNFIT. I'm active on those platforms, but the main thing I'm building right now has been my membership site. It's called guthealthforlife.com. Super easy, but it's actually, because I'm only one person and I do work one-on-one with clients, but I am full at the moment. You can get on my waiting list if you really want to work with me one-on-one. And I would love that too. I probably have some openings in September, but I really want to help more people than I can just one-on-one. So I started my membership site to give people a resource of I have courses on leaky gut. I have courses on candida. I have courses on insulin management, so it's really to create something you can just log on. And this is like your school. You can literally log on. There's different courses do have like different videos and it can keep your spot, but I want to reach the masses. Honestly, this is such a huge, I can just tell you when I started my TikTok, I was not expecting it would blow up, and it did. And I can say, I don't take that being like, oh, I'm so cool. I take it as, oh, gut health is a big issue right now. The reason these videos are getting shared so many times is people are like, oh, this sounds like you. This sounds, they're sending it to their friends and family. So I would say the main way, if you want to learn about gut health and blood sugar regulation and inflammation and detox, my website is made for that. You log on, you can go at your own pace. There's already like many courses up, but if you just want to start and read one course every month, or you can just binge watch them and do all of them in a month, like whatever. But I continue to release courses because I'm like, dude, if you're on this journey of education, I hope that you keep learning. I hope that I get these like I had a testimonial come in the other day that a girl did my candida protocol and lost 30 pounds just from doing that. Right. It's insane. She literally lost 30 pounds in like 4 months or something. It was like pretty dramatic. And I've never had any interaction with her besides her taking my course and her emailing me. And I was like, that's cool. Right. Like that is what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to, as much as I can, like you can always DM me on Instagram. I'm trying to get better at like being quick with them, but I'm a little overwhelmed sometimes. But if you really just want to start learning the Gut Health for Life membership, so it's just $39 a month. You can cancel anytime. But like, if you're continuing to get value from it, I tell people, I'm like, you're probably spending that on DoorDash in like a day. And you could actually, anyway, like take your education into your own hands. And I do think that I do a good job about breaking down things simply, because I understand people don't have an extensive knowledge like I do. So I try to always bring it real simple, and you can always ask questions on my site too. So I do answer members' questions. So I'd say those are the best ways to get in touch with me, is guthealthforlife.com and Instagram and TikTok at Jennilyn Fit.
Understood. Well, and we'll have all of those links in the description of the podcast. So Jennilyn, I super appreciate the time that you gave us today. It was wonderful. And we definitely will continue being in touch, and I hope to see you in this podcast again.
Thank you. Me too. I appreciate you guys and what you're doing. It's huge.
All right. Take care.
All right. Talk to you later. You too.
Bye.